What is up, Mom Nation? Happy Tuesday, and welcome back to Energy Shift with Erin. I am here back today with another amazing mom and another amazing guest on the show today. This is Teresa. And Teresa, welcome. So glad you're here.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you for inviting me. Happy to be
Yes.
here.
She is an amazing practitioner. Teresa, will you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and how you help people?
Well, Erin, I help women, especially those in midlife, finally understand why their body seems to hold on to weight is one and maybe attracting different diagnoses, even when they're doing all the right things. So instead of piling in more lifestyle changes or discipline, I like to focus on working with their nervous system and the emotions underneath. Because when the body feels safe, the stress eases, the heart opens up, and even weight, both physical and emotional, can begin to release.
I love that. So I really want to dive into this nervous system thing because we have a lot in common. I work with women in middle age as well, primarily with weight gain, hormonal weight gain, fat gain, energy, sleep, all of those things. And we do work on some mindset stuff. And I have been working myself on some nervous system regulation. So I'm super curious. How do we start? Let's say there's a lady out there, and I know there's plenty of them in this group who they want to feel better in their skin, maybe lose a little bit of weight, but mostly have their energy back, clothes fit right again. They're feeling very, very stressed and disconnected from their body. How do we start to work on the nervous system regulation to start to let go of some of that emotional and physical weight?
Erin, I can understand that frustration. It's one of the biggest frustrations I hear from women. That I'm doing everything right, I'm eating clean, I'm exercising, I'm tracking my steps, but my body is not exactly where I want it to be. So it won't let go of the weight where I want it to let go of, right? So that sounds like you, it sounds like me at some point. We're not broken and our body isn't working against us. Our body is very wise, and it's really holding on to extra weight, and not the physical weight, but emotional and energetic weight too. So when I work with clients, we look at all the 5 layers of that weight, because every layer tells a part of one story. First being the physical layer, things like inflammation, hormones, sleep, nervous system health. If our body is in fight or flight mode, it's like holding on to weight like armor, like feeling safe, like a shield, right?
Yeah.
And the second is the emotional layer, the stress, the grief, the heartbreak, old wounds that we are actually carrying that are tucked away in different areas of our body, different organs. They can also be called the issues in our tissues. And when our body remembers these, even when our mind seems to have moved on, that is another layer or shield that prevents us from releasing what needs to be released. The third is the mental layer. These are beliefs and thoughts patterns that run and repeat. We can call it ruminating, like I could have done this, I should have done this, I should have said this. And maybe we've carried stories like I'll never lose weight, or we hear that from people around us, or it's harder for me than for everyone else. I'm different this way, this way. So things that we have led to believe, even if they're just really in our heads. And those thoughts create stress signals to our body that we actually respond to, more so we store, and it becomes us. We live that. Then, of course, there's the fourth layer, the energetic layer. Well, these are all energetic weight. This is just the energy layer. The stock patterns, block flow, heaviness we can literally feel in our body. And so that's why tools like energy, racing, frequency tools are so powerful in this aspect, because they help shift that electrical charge or that energy that is sitting in our system. Then the fifth layer, which is the spiritual layer, is about reconnecting to our deeper sense of self, our worth, our self worth, our purpose. Because when we're out of alignment in this area, our body will also show it. So now, when I work with someone, we don't just zoom in on one layer because each layer will have something to release at the right time. And there's a process to identify which is ready to which is ready to release or to exit, more like what I'm ready for or what the client is ready for. So we gently move through all of them to calm the nervous system and support the body, help release stuck emotions that shift old beliefs, and then reconnects you back to yourself. So it's really like peeling layers of an onion until the body finally feels safe to let it go. So it's not another diet or workout plan. It's about aligning the mind, body, and the heart. I remember when we were talking about initially mindset, and I said, well, our hearts are the biggest energy generator of the body. So that's where our power really comes from, when our heart is in it. So what we want to align also is our heart. Where is our heart set, not just the mindset. So this weight loss isn't a battle anymore, but it becomes a natural byproduct of one's healing. And here's the thing, it doesn't compete, rather it complements when you're already working with a weight loss coach like yourself, or even a life coach.
Yeah. I I like what you have to say. I think it's so, so important. And I've realized, as I've grown as a coach and a wellness practitioner, how big the heart and mind play a role, and especially with middle-aged women, because we tend to take on a lot of roles in our life. And you mentioned that you are now you're entering a new phase for yourself as the empty nester, your kids are out, and you go from mom to now still mom, but a little bit of a different shift. So I think, in your opinion, does that play a role in our, as women, inability or ability to focus, to work on our mindset, to lose body fat, because we don't feel in tune with who we actually are? We've just taken on all of these roles. How do we start to become ourselves again? Without, I think women also are prone to feeling selfish for taking care of themselves too, which obviously we know, like both of us, if you take care of yourself, you show up better as a spouse, as a mom, as an aunt, as a dog mom, whatever it is you are. But it can be really challenging. So how do we start to manipulate our mindset or our heart to understand that, like, we are also important?
So grounding techniques is one. Start with grounding techniques. I ground myself every day, um, because I want to align with that purpose. These are the different hats, these are the different roles that we were put on this earth for. And now that is also a release, because it's like, okay, I'm taking off this hat for now. They're on their own. So calming ourselves, resting in the belief and trust in ourselves that we've done our very best as moms for this phase, and we have to cut the cord. Or some say it's like extending a dog leash, but no, I don't like to see my kids as having a leash to me. So it's more like, yep, letting them go, instead of kind of like thinking back to when they were learning how to walk, first holding them with both hands and then just one hand, and then just letting go of both hands, but being there behind them. So when they fall, you're there to catch them. And that's the harder balance. It's like, and also letting them know that their decisions are really up to them now. But I'm here. Um, Being true, I think that's one thing that is very important when we're dealing with us. It's being true to how we feel in that particular moment. If I miss them, then I'll text them, I miss you guys. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think allowing ourselves to feel and express that. If we have to cry, then we cry. Because
Yeah.
what we suppress, the body will express. And whatever fight or flight mode our body is in right now, that survival mode, we didn't get to this place overnight. So I'm 57 years old. So there's a lot of packed emotions there from the last 57 years. But those 57 years were also preceded by generational weight that are stuck in every layer of that energetic weight. So it's also finding the generational weight that affects those 5 layers.
I want to dive into, first I want to talk about grounding just real quick because I think it's something that everyone can do. It's very simple. What is your grounding method? You go outside, walk barefoot. What do you do for yourself for grounding? I just think it's beneficial if somebody's looking to start somewhere. This is really somewhere you can start. That's simple, is not overly time consuming, and most of us can do it for free just right outside of our house, right?
Absolutely. So the more you can connect your feet to the earth, the better. Walking barefoot. However, growing up, we were always taught to keep our feet clean. Being Asian, it's like, oh, your feet need to be clean. That grounding element was not part of our culture. Walking outside is. So I love like just looking at my backyard and trees, and then I'm a certified aromatherapy coach, so I love having oils, tree oils particularly, and I put that on my feet every day. As I'm working on my desk, like yourself, I have a grounding mat under my work table. But yeah, those are just examples of how I ground. And if you have a backyard, you can comfortably walk in. Go ahead, even at the park, just a few minutes. Even if you have a pool, if you when you're in the water, you can just plant yourself and envision yourself like a tree and growing roots that way. Or sitting down and just quieting yourself, clearing your mind, and imagining roots coming out from your behind, like anchoring yourself to the earth.
Yeah, I love it.
So,
So simple, so effective. I have a grounding sheet on my bed, and I definitely try to get outside. I'm not as good at it as I should be. I live in the forest up here in northern Arizona, so it's a lot of dirt. But I need to make that a priority. And I think it sounds silly if like get outside, get your feet in the dirt, get your feet in the grass, but it is very effective for circadian rhythm balance, stress, emotional, nervous system regulation, and that it's just very simple. Because I think when we talk about wellness, a lot of women think they have to spend money or it has to be this elaborate thing, and really 5-10 minute walk outside with your feet in the grass is a great place to start. So I'm glad we talked about that. I wanted to dive into generational weight because we had talked about this a little bit, and I think it's one thing that I have started working on myself over the past several years, and it's not anything that I recognized in my younger self that was holding me back, but now I see a lot of the things that were passed down to me from my parents, my grandparents, my financial goals, my physical goals, my health goals. Like a lot of those things do come from generational, I don't even want to say trauma. Some of it's not trauma, it's just conditioning of
mhm.
what our parents taught us. So how do we start to identify some of that generational weight to begin to overcome that? Because a lot of it, I know I work a lot with women on their relationship with food. And I know for a fact, for me and for a lot of these women, we're products of the 90s, and a lot of our moms are in the boomer generation. There's very extreme dietary protocols, lots of very, very low caloric intakes, really poor relationship with food, those kinds of things that I didn't even tie to part of my problem until I started. I've done cognitive behavioral therapy for this and a lot of things that I think when we don't think about it. So let's dive into that a little bit and what that looks like and what that means for people.
Okay, so what does that look like? Well, generational weight, it could be traits, beliefs, statements, communication patterns, and that have been passed on from our ancestors to our line. And then our kids get that from both sides. So it's even biblical, actually, right? And there are techniques to tap into our subconscious mind to ask our subconscious mind, where did I get this from? So this actually from an experience of an ancestor that was imprinted in my chemistry, so that when I was created through their DNA, it passed on. Or is this something that was experienced by my mom when I was in her womb? Or was this something I experienced or kind of like caught energetically from somebody I interact with? You know what they say, that you're like the product of the five people that you hang out most with. And that's because our energetic fields are always interacting. I mean, we have our energetic field about 6 feet away from us. So you can actually feel those people, those individuals, without even talking to them, right? So, and if that's what they're carrying, it could actually transfer, or we could actually be absorbing it. And that's great if we just absorb it because it's not ours. Then we can also, like, if we picked it up easily, I can also like pick, let it go, right? But what if it was in our own experience, whether it was words, thoughts, or deeds that were aimed at us? That's pretty hard to dig through. So there are different techniques to go through that, so that you know your like level of ownership, or if it's even your own. Then you
Yeah.
can pick through them and go through. So I remember mentioning to you, like, weeding an emotional garden. I mean, we're like gardens, we can bloom, we can have uh, the sweetest fruit or the most beautiful flowers. But if you don't have that fertile ground to begin with, because there are weeds that were not uprooted, and those are like generational weight, or any, um, I would say, any layer that doesn't harbor this beautiful and sweet fruits and flowers, then we're not going to have that beautiful garden as well.
Yeah, I think it's for me, it's been really eye opening. And I think when the ladies watch this and start thinking about it, this can be the way that you respond to conflict. It can be the way that you self sabotage. It can be the way that you like, for in my world, somebody has a really bad week with their nutrition, and then they don't submit a check-in. That probably has to do with some sort of conflict resolution from adolescence or childhood. Like maybe your parent had a like awkward interaction with, if you feel like you did bad, you got in trouble, so then you just retreat into yourself instead of saying, like, here's what I did, how can I fix this for next week? And a lot of that is ingrained in us from our childhood, or even like infancy, because we just start reacting to our parents' facial cues and different things. So like when we start looking at our behavior and start to figure out and identify what's holding us back. And it's not, for me, and I think what we have to be mindful of too is, it's not blaming. It's not saying like, I'm like this because my mom was like this. It's more like, oh, my mom retreated when she felt awkward, so that's why I'm doing it. And now I get the opportunity to overcome that and start to communicate more effectively. It's not like, we have to be careful of there's a way to shift this negative, or there's a way to shift this positive. Does that sound right to you too?
Oh, totally. So once we are able to like weed out like the roots of that experience, or that even that reaction, or that pattern, we can now choose, right? Have intentionally behave and respond in a different way. For example, like we're talking about diet and weight loss. I had a very bad relationship with vegetables. First of all, culturally, there's not many raw vegetables in our diet. So it's like a side dish, and everything else is cooked. So salads were not really a part of that. It was not the green and leafy type. And one of the frustrations of my family growing up was that I didn't eat a lot of vegetables. One time, my parents were away, and I was left in the care of a sibling. And in his intention to, like, for me to put on weight and eat vegetables, he literally forced me to eat cucumbers, to the point that I just like got sick, because it was just literally sick. I just spilled it out, right? And from that time on, you couldn't make me eat cucumbers. It
Yeah.
was only probably in the last 10 years that I learned to enjoy them again, when I let go of that image, that experience, that, understanding, not blaming, understanding that they just wanted the best for me. This was how that sibling chose to deal with it. Not very I guess, emotionally, EQ wise, not very high. So forcing it onto a child, he didn't realize that it could be a traumatic experience for me, and not wanting to eat that at all completely.
Yeah, and it's probably something he mirrored from somebody else that made him do something similar. Like maybe he needed to, it seems like obviously forcing somebody, especially a child, to eat a bunch of food that they don't like or in a capacity to make them sick is negative behavior, but he thought he was helping you. And those are the things that we have to start identifying. And I think it's huge. I uncover a lot of this with food relationships and behavioral patterns, self-sabotage. Like what part of your coping mechanisms or generational weight are you holding on to that's not serving you anymore? And I think it really does manifest a lot more in middle age. They say we slightly start to become our parents. And it's like either like you can hold, and it doesn't matter how your relationship with your parents is, like we're going to pick up some negative traits unless we decide to overcome them, because we're kind of mirroring what we have been taught. And that can be my parents are very unhealthy, and so I was set out on a mission to not be that. And it was hard. I wasn't taught exercise. I wasn't taught eating like balanced meals. We survived on ramen a lot as a kid, and it was a lot of thin culture and jazzercise and the things that came out of the 90s. So I had to do a lot of emotional work and inner work to improve, eat more, eat carbs, exercise regularly, and tell myself that I wasn't going to perpetuate this dysfunction from my childhood. And as it continues, I mean, they're still really not healthy now in their 60s. So it's problematic. And I think everybody can kind of identify with this. It doesn't have to necessarily be weight loss, but it could just be feeling better or how you respond to your spouse. I had a conversation with another practitioner last week, and she was talking about how our mindsets start to change as we enter middle age, and how we start to have more a little bit more conflict with maybe the people that are closest to us. And I think a lot of that is coming from these coping mechanisms and or the generational trauma or generational weight that we're holding on to, right?
I agree 100%. And I know we were kind of like thinking about this too, that why is it surfaces at this age? I think it's because we're adding more hats at this time. We could be caregivers now. I mean, we're thinking, okay, if you raise children, you're starting to let go of them, but now you're starting to hold back to the hand, start holding hands with your aging parents. So you're shifting that caregiving to a different set.
Yeah.
Now it's harder to take care of or try to raise our parents, right? Rather than children. Because they're also set in their ways. They also have their own beliefs, and sharing what new things that we learned with them so that they live a healthier life or better lifestyle is even harder. So we're taking in more, but at the same time, we're also headed down that path. So if we had a receptacle, and we're all receptacles, so our capacity to hold on to certain things is only so much too. It's finite. And why is it at this age that we start putting on that weight? I realized, oh yeah, there is such a thing, and that is cortisol belly. There's gluten belly, there's cortisol belly. And if there's that cortisol belly, okay, what is stressing me out? Stress is such a big word, but how do we break that down such that I can be in a rest and digest mode, absorb what I eat, because it's not about just what we eat, it's what we absorb and retain, and then what we eliminate, so that I can be in that calm state and proceed forward, move forward from that, have that focus, the energy, the desire, the intention, and to, if it's weight loss, then head towards weight loss or just a healthier lifestyle in general, because weight loss becomes a byproduct rather than just the goal.
Yeah.
So when you get out of that, right, there's Um, I mentioned it earlier. It's like vagus nerve stimulation. If you look at the gut and brain connection, physiologically, anatomically, that's there, that vagus nerve, and it really affects our emotions, our hormones, and our gut health. And you can sort cycle back and forth. That gets you into that rest and digest mode.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, gut health, I don't think people realize how gut health is so tied to our feel good hormones, serotonin, dopamine, making sure that that is healthy is one of the keys, especially when you are talking about perimenopausal weight gain, high stress, take you mentioned taking care of parents, which I didn't even think about, and I think this is a really important part of the conversation because your kids are more in a mode where they're taking care of themselves, but you're right, you shift to taking care of parents, which in a lot of cases is harder because they're adults too. They're adults too. You're not talking about a 5-year-old. So um,
Mhm.
it is a high stress phase of life. How do you help people start to navigate nutritionally? You mentioned rest and digest and absorbing of nutrients and gut health stuff. How do we start focusing a little bit more on that without overwhelming? Because I think our instinct when we want to lose weight or get healthier or improve sleep, energy, all of these things that are happening to us in middle age, we want to go to the extreme. We're going to cut carbs, we're going to cut calories, and that's just going to exacerbate the stress
Mm,
response, correct?
agreed. Totally. It's like choosing choosing your poison. I mean, choosing your stress. Do I get stressed out by watching, counting calories, weighing my intake, what's on my plate, looking at the colors, or not? Because that stresses me out more. So you have to choose, I guess, your stress and then deal with it. Now, our body, it's, how would I say? It's a physical representation of what's going on emotionally. In traditional Chinese medicine, they found that certain emotional issues store in different parts of the body. And when it comes to weight loss in particular, or shall we say just any health disease, like an unease, a disconnection, what organ is contributing to this um, lack of flow, or maybe the weight loss, or the fat retention? So could it be toxins, because toxins are hiding in fat? Could it be that particular lifestyle, which really affects our bodies too, our endocrine disruptors? What is that? What can I clean up in my house? Or is it's what's going inside my body? So toiletries, cosmetics, skincare, things like that. At the same time, if I already have a diagnosis, a person comes to me with a particular diagnosis, then we zero in. That's the red flag. We zero in on the emotions tied to that first. No, but when we tap into our subconscious, it can tell us if what it's ready for, okay, or what it's still holding on to, or possibly it's so stored, it's so well kept that we have to kind of like chip it, chip at it a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
Because if it's in our subconscious, about 5%, 3 to 5% of our conscious mind carry our memories. Everything else is in the subconscious. So it's bringing that into the center and then letting it go. The beauty is that because it's not the same as talk therapy or coaching, it's really more like me like laying out the contents of a drawer and seeing, okay, this piece, this is broken, I don't need this anymore. This screw, this paper clip, this is like part of a Swiss knife that I don't need. I don't even have that part anymore. And just really just putting it where it belongs or throwing it. We don't even have to dig up the experience, because sometimes the body doesn't even remember, or that you do not need to remember where that broken screw came from. You just know, I don't need to that broken screw, I can get rid of that. Or if you identify a part of, let's say, a bicycle, oh, this is why it doesn't run, so I need to put that there, it doesn't belong in this drawer. So when I work with clients, I can go probably dig up like 16, 17 emotions, and because many are, I guess, aligned or more used to like talk therapy. They think that they need to talk it out. Where did this emotion come from? And I tell them, no, you don't have to talk about it, right? You don't have to relive that experience. We just have to say, okay, bye bye, and just ditch it.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's beneficial to start to understand like all of the pieces of change because like fat loss isn't simple, but it feels like it should be way easier for a lot of people than it is, but there's a lot of this like emotional ties to things. And you even mentioned endocrine disruptors. Like those are other things that we can start to lower or eliminate in our environment, right? Fragrances, those kinds of things, in order to start to be healthier without having to overhaul everything that you're doing. Because I think we do get super, super overwhelmed. And I like that you bring up that weight loss is a side effect. I always say that too with my coaching. Like, I want to improve your food quality. I want to improve your relationship with food. We want to unpack some stuff from your past. We want to move because we can, not as a punishment, those kinds of things. And weight loss is a side effect of all of those things. So if you were to give somebody the starting step, I know we've talked about a lot of things here. If you're diving into whatever goals that this person has, what is one starting step to start to feel better, to lose weight, to release some of the emotional baggage, and be on your way to healing and producing the physical manifestation of whatever it is you also want to look like or feel like, whatever the case may be.
So, are you asking me like if total stranger comes in and says, Teresa, I don't want to work with you, what do I do?
Yes,
Right?
exactly. What's maybe you're on a consult and you want to just get them feeling a little bit better. What's the first step forward?
Okay, so I have a simple client intake form so that it gives me an idea where you're coming from, what you're thinking, exactly what you said, what your goals are, what they believe is impeding them from reaching those goals, right? Because just the way they will relay this, or if there's any diagnosis, any health concerns already present, what are those? And then I also ask myself if they're a client I can work, if they're somebody who will be open to the modalities I will introduce, because we need to be on the same again, we need to be aligned, we have to be on the same wavelength. And then I asked them if they will allow me to tap into their subconscious, so their energetic areas, and see what that tells me. Okay, what areas are having the red flags? Could it be emotional? Could it be in the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual? Then I just go from there, because no two people are alike. I love what you said, that it's not a punishment, right? So even in that sense that we're doing this, this is not to punish you. This is to polish you, because you're really all diamonds in the rough. We're a work in progress, and just those shifts in words is a shift in energy. There are studies on the power and energy behind words and thoughts. So just little tweaks of wording that we can get used to already creates a shift in our body. Little steps, baby steps. I remember when I was dieting after my second child, people would say, oh, is it your cheat day, is it your cheat day? I say, no, it's my treat day. I worked hard on my diet the whole week. So now I'm going to treat myself. I'm going to reward myself on the weekend, whether it's regular soda or ice cream.
I like it.
So
Yeah, I think that's good. Changing the way that we are talking to ourselves about our
yeah,
goals, reframing words. that kind of thing. I think that is so important. I like that you said treat day. I hate the term cheat day. We don't cheat. Eating is not cheating. Sometimes we need more fuel, sometimes we need less, and it's okay to have
Mhm.
fun food in there too. Before we wrap up, I want to dive into that just briefly. What are other good ways to start reframing the way we talk to ourselves? Earlier you had mentioned like people, I hear this a lot, like I can't lose weight. I've tried all these things no matter, and like when we say those things to ourselves, like no human being, unless you have like a very rare condition, is void of fat loss. None of us are. There may be a lot of underlying reasons why it's harder, but when one of them is telling ourselves that we can't. So how do we start to identify those self-deprecating thoughts? Or a lot of times it actually comes out of our mouths, and I see it on Facebook all the time, like, and when we start saying like fat loss is hard for me, but I just need to figure out how, or whatever, whatever it is that we're working on. How do we start to manipulate those negative mindsets to turn it into a positive to move forward?
Okay. So think of a vacation. What brings you joy? Planning a vacation, right? So that's your destination. Planning a vacation to Rocky Point. I'm driving to Rocky Point. Okay. What will it take for me to get there? What do I need on my trip? So now, if my destination is, let's say, weight loss or fat loss, what if we change that to um, fat retention? What is keeping me in this fat retaining mode? Why am I retaining the fat such that I am not at this figure or size or inches that I want to be in? I want to fit in that dress. If that's your destination, okay, so where am I keeping that fat? Is it in my arms? Do you see my jiggle there? You see my jiggle there? Okay, if this is a stubborn area for me, let me see. Have I done the exercises that could help firm up my arms? Because it's not typical that you have there are people who keep their fat here. My daughter said, Mom, your legs are, and my limbs are really thin. That's my build. It's like, whatever you do, your limbs remain thin. I said, yeah, well, the problem there is that I become like an M&M with my arms there because everything is in the middle. So I have to watch it. And why is it staying in the middle? So what am I holding on to? What are the emotions stuck? Whether it's in my midsection or is it in my arms? This part, not my forearms. I'm like, what is there? And why can't I get rid of it? So I always look at the emotional side and then work from there. Okay, if that's okay, what is in this function anatomically or biologically, however you want to call it, like with the digestive process that is giving me issues. As we age, we don't break down the food the way we're supposed to, because to break down food, we need enzymes, right? And those enzymes secrete for starting in the mouth. So if we're actually drinking more rather than chewing more, we're not secreting proper enzymes that starts the digestive process. Therefore, we're not breaking down the food into particles that can be absorbed and be available to the body and be delivered where they should be. So I didn't even realize that we needed that. And I always thought, oh, the enzymes come from food. And they're true, there are enzymes that come from food, from vegetables, fruits, but we ourselves are born with our own reserve. So how can we replenish that? And depending on our diet ever since, we're probably using up more enzymes that we needed to digest and metabolize carbs. So if you're Asian, rice is rice. So we've used up maybe all the enzymes that are there to process the rice versus bread, and what type of bread, our quality of food now. So helping our body digest that even before thinking of what we're, aside from, not before, but aside from thinking of what we're eating, when I put this in my mouth, is my body actually going to make use of this? Do I have the proper workers in my body to make use of this food so that I get the nutrients out of it? Or am I just going to pass that? That's one when we're aging. So emotions, enzymes to break it down, right? Those two are already big as far as I'm concerned. And many Asians are also lactose intolerant. So we don't even have enough enzymes to break that down. So what can we do with that? So that's where supplementation comes in. Where your source is, of course, that's a different story, right? And that plays a role as far as our diet is concerned. And then just balancing those two throughout the day. For some people like me, that's a lot. And that in itself can cause the stress.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I like that you brought up different cultures and being able to process foods differently. I think we don't consider that as much in the US. It's either we have weight to lose or we don't, but it's really important to understand your genetic makeup and how your body responds, and what, like, everybody responds differently. I have clients in my space who, can go out to eat more. Some can't. Some can have a couple glasses of wine. Some can't. Like you said, in Asian cultures, lactose is harder. There's different cultures who don't have the ability to process gluten as well. And so it's really about understanding and knowledge. And it sounds like, what you do is very helpful in uncovering what's happening both emotionally and physically. So I think that's really cool. If somebody wanted to work with you, how do they find you? How do they get a hold of you?
I work primarily like word of mouth, personal referrals, but you can find me on Instagram. My handle is at Techie, TECHIE_Feely, because it's all the feels. And on Facebook, it's Teresa G Valmonte. I really work out of the home, so I have clients coming here or remotely, but some modalities need to be in person. So you and I can talk about it, because there's an area in about 2 blocks from me. I'm by Chandler Riggs area that we can meet at and have your modality there.
Very cool. So if you're interested in working with Teresa, hit her up on Facebook or Instagram. Thank you so much for this conversation. It was super helpful, and we hope to have you on again soon.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much, Erin. I learned so much from you too. And I look forward to the next time we see each other again.
Yeah, me too. You guys all have a good rest of your day. If you need anything from us, feel free to shoot us a message. We'd be happy to answer any questions about what we do or what we talked about today. And we will see you again next week.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Struggling to feel your best? When energy is low and nothing seems to work, it's time for a new approach. Here's someone who guides real people to real, lasting wellness. Meet Erin McDonald, certified master health coach, nutrition coach, and NASM personal trainer. Helping you create simple, lasting routines that support a healthier, more energized you. Feel better, move better, live better. Because health isn't just a goal, it's a lifestyle you deserve. Take the first step toward feeling your best. Your future self will thank you. Connect with Erin today.